Hi guys, my name is Dr. Bakhtar Ahmad. I am a junior doctor working in the south of England in A&E, and I'm also the founder of The Medic Life, which is a company I set up about 5 years ago to help people like you applying to medicine and dentistry. Thanks for joining today for the introduction to the UCAT. The purpose of this video is to give you a taster of what the 2-day live online Medic Life UCAT course is all about. So we'll go through an introduction to the UCAT, some scoring information, and then go through some practice questions to give you a taster of what the course is like. And if you'd like to come along to the full 2-day live online UCAT course, then you can have a look down below for the dates that are available, and then we'll go from there. Right, so first of all, what is the UCAT? It stands for University Clinical Aptitude Test, and it used to be called the UKCAT, so you may see that pop up here and there, but now it's called the UCAT, University Clinical Aptitude Test, and it's the main admissions exam for medical and dental school entry in the UK. Now, there was another exam called the BMAT that's now been scrapped, so pretty much every single university in the UK is now going to be looking for you scoring highly on the UCAT. It's the entry requirement for medicine and dentistry, as I said, and it's a 2-hour computer-based exam that you would be expected to go and sit at Pearson VUE centers. Now, that in itself is a bit of an artificial environment because a lot of you guys would not be used to going to other test centers, not in your normal place of examination like your schools, so that adds in an extra challenge. And last year, just under 36,000 people sat this exam. This year, I suspect the number is going to be even higher just because the second exam, which I mentioned, the BMAT, has been scrapped. So a lot more people should be sitting the UCAT for application to medical and dental schools. Let's have a look at some important dates. So the first one has already gone by. So registration for the UCAT opened on the 14th of May. So if you haven't registered an account, you should do that as soon as you can. Because that will then allow you to go ahead and book your slot when the test booking opens on the 18th of June. Now, have a think about when you want to sit your exam. Have a look at your summer holidays calendar, and what you're going to be doing over the summer holidays. Find a time when you should be sitting that exam, which should ideally be after you've done 4 to 6 weeks of solid preparation. So once you've done that, have a think about when that might be, and then based on that, book your exam slot as soon as the 18th of June arrives. If you're watching this video after that, then you really need to get on that as soon as possible and book an exam slot because they do go very quickly. Pearson VUE centers don't just do the UCAT, they do lots and lots of other exams, and therefore slots can be taken up, and you may end up having to travel to, in some instances, other cities really far apart from when you wanted to do it, and then you're at the mercy of what's available rather than when you want to do it. Testing opens on the 8th of July and goes all the way until the last testing day of the 26th of September. So UCAT gives you quite a wide date range of when you want to sit the exam, because obviously it's over the summer holidays, depending on your schedule. There's also access arrangement applications. So if you're someone who's applicable or eligible for extra time, then have a look on the official UCAT websites for access, and then they will tell you what you qualify for and therefore how much extra time you will get for the exam. And then the final UCAS application deadline, so this is when you send off your application to UCAS, is on the 15th of October. This includes your university choices, your personal statement, obviously your UCAS score automatically goes there, and you update that UCAS portal with all your personal information. So let's have a look at the UCAT format. So it's a 2-hour exam. Think of it as 5 mini exams: verbal reasoning, decision-making, quantitative reasoning, abstract reasoning, and a situation judgment, all of which have their own timing, okay? And you can't take the time from one section into the next. You cannot do that. You can only use the time that's given to you for that section, and then when you go on to the next section, the clock resets again for that particular section. And the only break you get in between will be your 1 minute for instructions. In that time, you would have read that instruction page so many times, you could just close your eyes, rest a little bit, spin around in your chair, but that is your only break you get in between those sections, so use it wisely. Let's have a look at some scoring. So the first 4 sections are scored from 300 to 900. That's verbal reasoning, decision-making, quantitative reasoning, and abstract reasoning. And then the final section, situation judgment, is scored from, was banded from 1 to 4. Bands 1 and 2 are good, 3 and 4 not so good. So what you want to aim for is as high a score as possible, and then a good low band as well. Most universities will reject you if you have band 4, even if you had a really good numerical score. So make sure you work on both segments of the UCAT. Let's have a look at some averages from last year. So 2023 averages. And if we look at the per section average, so an average of all 4 sections, 629. This is out of 900. And I'm sure, people that apply to medical or dental school, and yourself and your friends and colleagues who are also applying, all of you are used to scoring really well in all the exams you've done so far, whether it's GCSEs or your mock A-levels. And even before then, you're all used to scoring 90%, 100%, high 80s. And all of a sudden, if we take you and people like you from all over the country, and about 36,000 of you who sat this exam last year, the national average for one of the sections was below 50%. So this is out of 900, so it's below 50%. And that goes to show why this exam is so, one, difficult, but also different from anything else you've done. And this is why approaching the UCAT with the right mindset, with the right techniques is so important. And this is where the medic life comes in. So at this point, I normally get asked, what is a good UCAT score if you want to be interviewed or pass on to the interview stage for your favorite medical dental school? And I would recommend aim for 700 or above as your average of the 4 sections. Now, most universities won't look at your per section score. Most of them won't. Some may, but most of them just get the total score, and therefore they're going to be looking at the per section average. So if you score above 700 as your average, you are in a very good, very comfortable position, because that puts you in the first or the second decile. And most universities will very happily take you, provided that you've got a band 1 or 2 in situation judgment as well. Above 800 is incredible, but it's very, very rare. Over the last 5 years of teaching thousands of students, I've had less than 10 who've got an average of over 800. But what you can do, what's not uncommon, is get a really high 800 score in one or more of your sections where your strengths are, and then that will boost your entire average up. So just to give you an example of my little brother, Waleed, who is currently a 4th year medical student at George's, he went and got 890 in his quantitative reasoning bit because he was really, really good at that section, and that improved his entire average, and he got the first decile and got all his interviews, essentially. So that's what I would love for all of you guys to do as well. And finally, you don't need every single question correct to get the maximum score. The UCAT is a standardized exam. It is an exam that's designed to make you waste time in some situations. So don't worry if there's a few questions that you come across where you know that you're going to triage them or just leave them behind. And even if you don't get the mark there, you can still get the maximum score. Let's go on to looking at what you'll be provided with when you actually go to your test. So it's a computer-based exam. There will be a clock that counts down. There will also be a feature for you to flag a question. So there'll be a button that looks like that, which you can hit, and it will flag that question. So when you get to the end, you can say, I want to review all my flagged questions, and it'll bring you back to that. And then finally, you'll be given a noteboard. Now that can be an A4 size noteboard with a marker pen that, in some cases, well, most test centers, you should be able to rub it out, but make sure you test that before you hit the start button on the computer. And then finally, you have your on-screen calculator. Okay, so this is an absolutely annoying thing to use. It's on-screen calculator. It is very fiddly to use. It makes you waste time if you're overusing it. So there's a few techniques I'll teach you guys about that as well, which will help you save time and therefore will absolutely smash your UCAT. So one of the things that's going to happen to you over the next few months is that you'll be doing the UCAT, you'll be writing your personal statements, they'll be thinking about applications to medical or dental school, which universities to apply. All of that gets very stressful. So I want you guys to keep thinking forward as to the time when you may get into medical dental school, your favorite medical dental school, and you've already there and you started, or even far ahead of actually becoming a doctor or a dentist, right? Keep that vision very clear in your head so you stay motivated over the next few months so you can keep going through all the hurdles that are going to come up. And one of the things that was the highlight for me during my medical career was when in my final year, I was given the opportunity to go to America and South Africa for almost 3 months on my electives and learn more about emergency and trauma medicine. And one of the things that happened to me whilst I was out there was this kind of scenario. So I was in A&E one night, and there were 2 doctors and a couple of med students, and the A&E is short-staffed in Johannesburg anyway. And we had 4 patients who were very critically unwell in resus, which is the very, very severe part of A&E where the critically ill patients go. All right. And around 3, 4 a.m., paramedics brought in 5 extra patients all at the same time that were involved in a taxi accident where the taxi had rolled over a few times. So you can imagine a few of those patients must be very, very unwell. So in that situation, what is the right thing to do? And this is where triage comes in. Okay. So triage, if you're applying to mass casualty events, the definition of that is to save the largest number of survivors from a multiple casualty incident. And just to give you an example, when I was there was an individual who had a bandage around their head. It was covered in blood and his eyes were closed. So that goes to kind of just by looking, gives me an indication whether this person may have a head injury. Similarly, the woman next to him was awake. She was still on a trolley, a paramedic's trolley, but she was awake and she was on her phone, texting someone, maybe her loved one, telling them that she was okay. Just from the end of the bed, you can eyeball that one person is most likely more injured than the other, and therefore that is your first initial bit of triaging, which you can do again and again. Now, why am I talking about this on a UCAT video? Well, the UCAT, in a way, is a mass casualty incident. Right? There's lots of different questions that are out there to get you, and your job is to get the highest number of those questions correct. And every question, apart from an exception, every question is worth 1 mark. So the idea is to get the highest number of questions correct in the shortest amount of time, because no one finishes the UCAT. It's designed for you not to finish. So let's go on to some sample questions. And here's again another picture of my elective where I did have the opportunity to go around flying in a helicopter as well, which is absolutely incredible. But that is something to talk about at a later date. So verbal reasoning is going to be the first section that comes up your way. And you have 11 passages and 4 questions per passage, giving you a total of 44 questions. Now, for this section, the standard timing is 21 minutes. And what I would like you guys to do is spend no more than 30 seconds per question. For those of you who are good at quick maths, 30 seconds times by 44 questions would actually end up being 22 minutes. So even with that, you would most likely run out of time. But since I'm such a nice guy, let's aim for 30 seconds and maybe we can save a few extra seconds here and there to get right to the end. But for now, let me give you guys a taster of what a verbal reasoning question is like. So I'm going to time you guys. I'll go off screen for a second. I'll come back again after 30 seconds and then we'll go through the question together. So you can grab a pen and paper and you can write down your answer on a piece of paper just to take part, even though this is a video, unlike the interactive course that will be running if you choose to come along to it. So 30 seconds starting now. Right, so that is the end of the 30 seconds. So let's see how you guys did. So when it comes to verbal reasoning questions, the passage itself can be quite lengthy and you don't know what you're looking for. So the best thing to do is start with the question itself, okay? So the first modern games took place in Athens. What you then want to do is find a keyword. So something like first modern games, so modern games or Athens. And as you scan the passage, not reading the passage, you're kind of glancing your eyes over it, seeing if you can get to something to do with your keyword. And Greece comes up, which is obviously a country, Athens being a city, but, kind of guides you that information may be in that passage. You scan a little bit more and it tells you the first modern games in Athens. Now, based on that, that's a pretty close match to our answer. Now, answers may not be direct matches. They sometimes may be synonyms or they may be close enough. There may be inferences that we'll go on to on the course if you come along to that. But for now, this is a true answer. All right, so well done to those of you who selected A. Let's do one which is slightly different. You guys have 30 seconds. Right, guys, that is the end of your 30 seconds. So when it comes to looking for keywords, certain keywords are excellent, like numbers or capital letters or names or cities or places. All of these things will jump out a little bit more. So for example, in this particular question, you could go for 204 or 2012. And that would take you very nicely towards the end of the passage. It says 204 nations at the 2012 Summer Olympics. Now, I'm sure most of you guys selected A because that's what everyone does. And whenever I teach this, if I do this in person, most of the people, about 95% of the people go for A. But this is where the UCAT likes to trap you. Here, it mentions London. But in the passage, there is no mention of the fact that the 2012 Olympics happened in London. And the takeaway point from this is, don't use your general knowledge when it comes to the UCAT verbal reasoning section, because it will only lead you to making mistakes. So because of the fact that it mentions London in the actual statement, in the question, and not in the passage, this is a can't tell answer. Now, just a little tip for you guys is your default option should always be can't tell unless you can prove it otherwise, all right? Unless you can find the information and say, well, this is true or not, in which case it'll be false. Right, so these are true, false, can't questions. You may get about 8 to 12 of these off the 44, and then the remainder of the questions will be comprehension questions. So let's go on to those now. You guys have 30 seconds for this one. Right, that is the end of 30 seconds. It does go by pretty quick. Now, when it comes to comprehension questions, you, instead of having true, false, can't tell, you will have 4 options, A, B, C, and D. The best way to approach these questions is still do the same thing. Start with the question itself and try and find some keywords. So in this case, we could go with fastest regulated racing cars. Or some of you may have actually gone for Formula One, but then if you go for Formula One, you realize that it literally pops up everywhere, Formula One there, Formula One. So as soon as that happens on test day, where you come across a passage where your keyword is just all over the place, quickly reset, go back and pick another one. So we're going to go with fastest regulated racing cars instead, or fastest, or something to do with racing cars. And it takes you to the beginning of the 3rd paragraph. And it says, Formula One cars are the fastest regulated road course racing cars in the world, owing to very high cornering speeds achieved through the generation of large amounts of aerodynamic downforce. Now, notice how I still haven't read A, B, C, D yet, right? What you want to do is, with this information, make a quick summary in your head. And in this case, my summary is going to be that Formula One cars are very fast because they go around corners quickly because they have a lot of downforce. And then match that summary, because we're looking for something that is match, i.e. a true answer, with A, B, C, or D. And A talks about engine sizes. Nope. B talks about the chassis design, and again, nope. C says they can generate large amounts of aerodynamic downforce, or large amounts of downforce resulting in high cornering speeds. So C is the one that is the closest match to my answer. And as soon as you find an answer, don't waste even a second reading what's after that. Just select it and move on. That's what verbal reasoning is all about. No one finishes verbal reasoning because it's how time intensive it is. But that's what we're going to be aiming for, to actually finish verbal reasoning. Right, let's go on to the next passage, the final passage, and you guys have 30 seconds. Okie dokie, that is the end of 30 seconds. So this one's a little bit harder, isn't it? And the reason is because this is what we call an open question, meaning that there are no keywords in this question itself. It is the generic instruction, which of the following conclusion is most likely to be true. Now, these questions automatically become a bit harder because now the way you approach them is you have to do each A, B, C, and D one at a time, thinking, is this true, false, can't tell? Is this true, false, can't tell? And so on. And we're looking for something that is a true answer. So let's start with A. And A says, running a Formula team is an expensive ordeal. Now, we could pick a keyword, and I would go for expensive. Okay, so look for something to do with money, and that will bring you towards the last paragraph, talks about the $120 million. So designing, building, and maintaining cars, paid transport being $120 million. It then talks about 4.4 billion in cash and acquisitions for 8 billion. So all of this is a lot of money. And when you come on to the UCAT course, we'll go through how you can, sometimes there won't be direct matches, but there'll be things like inferences where you can infer that, you know what, all this talk about so much money is actually true to the fact that for running a Formula team is an expensive ordeal, and therefore selecting A would be your answer. And you would get confident in doing that. However, the rest of the 36,000 people who sit the exam at this point would be a bit unsure, and this is what would actually happen to them. And this is why people never finish verbal reasoning or score below 50%. Remember, the average score was 591 out of 900, right? Is they would go on to B, and they'd be like, okay, a British driver is a favorite for this year's Formula One season. What would be your keyword? I bet you're thinking British, right? So let's look for British. You guys have 10 seconds to look for British in the passage. And this is how easy it is to waste 10 seconds on the UCAT. Remember, the clock is still ticking, time is still moving, and we're still stuck on that 1 mark we need to get from this question. Remember, this question is worth 1 mark, as is the easiest question. So the whole point is trying to get to the answer as quickly as possible, but also understanding which questions to triage, which questions to actually do in the first place that will allow you to get to the answer in the quickest time possible. And that is one of the things that you'll learn with the Medic Life 2-day live online UCAT course. Right, so then we go on to C and D. Well, we're not going to do that today, but essentially the idea is to not get bogged down by certain questions. And right at the beginning, when we said this would be an open question, well, this is where you would realize that straight away this is going to take you more, and you would have had the option to flag a question and move on to the next option, come back later. But this is something we'll talk about at the course. Right, so let's go on to talking about decision making. So decision making question is the second section, which you'll get after verbal reasoning, and you'll have 29 questions, and you'll have 31 minutes to do them in. So timing is a little bit better, 1 minute per question, but then these questions are a little bit tougher. They require you to do more work for them, okay? So what we're gonna do is let's give you guys a minute to do the next question. Right, so coming to the end of your minute, when it comes to the decision making, there's 6 different types of questions, and all 6 of them require different methods of approach, right? So let's go towards this question. So during the recent GCSE exams, some students sat the music exam, 190 sat the biology exam, and 40 sat the French exam. Some students sat multiple exams, including 2 or all 3 of the above subjects. Now, this is the key bit, because this is what tells me what type of question this is when it comes to decision making. And from this term, the fact that you've got 2 or 3 things, if you were to represent that visually, you would do this with a Venn diagram, right? So this is a Venn diagram question. And all you have to do is kind of read the rest of the information and make your own data, something that makes sense. So it says 15 of the students sat only the music exam. So let's go ahead and label this diagram. So we've got 190 biology here, we've got music in this top circle, and then French in this bottom right circle. And 15 of the students sat only the music exam. So 15 goes in there. 142 students sat on only the biology exam. So 142 goes in there. 9 of the students sat both music and French. So that goes there. And 6 of the students sat French and biology. So that goes in there. And then 8 students sat biology, music, and French. So sitting all 3, which goes in there. And the question is asking you, how many students sat both music and biology? Well, this bit. And we know what the total is. We know what the rest of it is. All we're going to do is a simple equation, 190 minus 142 minus 6 minus 8. And essentially that gives you your answer as 34. So well done if you managed to get that. But if you didn't, well, this is why using your noteboard on test day would be so important, and picking up those little bits of information. So this one's not too bad. Let's do another. We'll do an example of a logic puzzle. So you guys have a minute for this one. Right, so that is the end of your minute. So let's go ahead and do this question together. So Peter, Claire, Henry, Michael, Emma, and Dan are the only people in a queue. Claire and Emma are the only girls. And the question says, which of the following statements is true? And it's giving you a few options. So let's go ahead and draw 6 dashes. And that represents our queue, and the queue is facing this way. So this is the person at the front, and this is the person at the back. Okay, and then we've got a few rules that we can look at and try and figure out where we're going to put certain people. So there are 3 boys between the girls, and Peter is between 2 boys. Well, right now we don't know where anyone is, so therefore we can't really start with that. Claire is ahead of Emma in the queue. Okay, so just to think about, there's 3 boys between the girls, and Claire's ahead of Emma, which means that between Emma and Claire, there's going to be 3 people, right? And Emma is just behind Dan. So right now, Emma's behind Dan, possibly 3 other people, and Claire. So it'd be quite fair. Let's try and put Emma here, and we'll put Dan there, and then we'll count 3 spaces, and we can put Claire there. Okay, so that's just something we're trialing. And then it says there are 3 people between Michael and Dan. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and we'll put Michael here, right? And it says Peter is between 2 boys, which means Peter could not go into this position next to Claire, because then he would be a girl. He would be next to a girl, and therefore Peter's going to go there. Henry's going to go here, and we've got our order, right? And I know I make it look easy, but that's exactly because we've got different ways of looking at logic puzzles, which I'll be teaching you as well. So let's have a look at the answer choices. There are 3 people between Claire and Peter. Nope, there's only Henry. Emma is at the front of the queue. No, we labeled the queue earlier, so we don't get confused. Emma's at the back. And then it says Dan is in front of Michael. Nope, Michael's at the front, and therefore D is the correct answer. There's a girl between Henry and Michael, which is correct. That girl is Claire. So that's your actual order of which people stay in, but anyone can do that, right? And some of you may have actually finished that, but the trick that I want you guys to learn, along with 100 of the tricks that I'll be teaching you later, but essentially is, let's go back to this question and let's start again, right? We've got our 6 people. And we got to the bit where we wrote Emma, Dan, and then Claire, because 1, 2, 3 people. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Let me just do that again so it's clearer. So Emma, Dan, 1, 2, 3, Claire. Okay. So if we look at the answers at this point, because logic puzzles, you don't always have to finish them to get to your answer, or you can at least eliminate a few options based on just a little bit of information. So there's 3 people between Claire and Peter. Nope. There's 3 people between Claire and Emma, and as it says here as well, right? So A is incorrect. Emma is at the front of the queue. We already know that Emma's quite far back, so she can't be. Dan is in front of Michael. Nope, Dan is only in front of Emma. So based on just that bit of information, we still managed to get our answer of D being correct, right? So logic puzzles, you don't always have to finish them. So don't get sucked into spending 2, 3, 4 minutes in trying to complete a logic puzzle. Right. Let's go on to quantitative reasoning. And the reason I wanted to show you some averages again is usually abstract reasoning and quantitative reasoning tend to be the best scoring sections. So if you have strengths, especially if it's in quantitative reasoning, this is your chance to really bring out that strength and absolutely smash one of those sections or 2 of those sections to bring your average up. And I'm going to show you a few time-saving techniques with quantitative reasoning that will really allow you to get close to 900 and try and get into the first or the second decile of the UCAT. Right, so quantitative reasoning, you'll have 9 data sets, and this could be a pie chart, a graph, a table, or just a bit of information, a paragraph, and you'll get 4 questions each, giving you a total of 36 questions. You'll have 25 minutes to do them in. And what I would like you to do, although you have a bit more time than 30 seconds per question, is try and spend 30 seconds per question, because this is enough to do the easy and medium difficulty questions. And if you're triaging effectively, you can then come back to the harder questions, and you'll have you can have up to about 8 to 10 minutes left at the end to focus on those harder questions. So let's go ahead and have a look at how we're going to do some of the questions. And one of the triaging techniques that kind of comes into it is you come across a question in quantitative reasoning, you ignore the data, so don't even bother looking at the data, right? Just start with the question itself. So here it says Rory's mortgage budget includes a mortgage for 2 properties, a house and a flat. The mortgage of the flat is 6% of his monthly mortgage budget. The mortgage for his house is what percentage of his monthly mortgage budget? Too much stuff going on, right? It's very confusing. So then I would at this point just guess a option, flag it, and move on. Go to the next question, right? So that's what we're going to do now. How much more does Rory spend per month on food and gym? I can already see food and gym. I can already see what the total is. This is going to be a much quicker question. So why don't you guys give this one a go, and you have 30 seconds. Right, I'm going to stop you guys there. So let's go through this question together. Okay, so how much more does Rory spend per month on food than on gym? Okay, so we've got food is 23%. So let's work out what food is first. So you've got 23%, 0.23 times by 3,200. And that gives you a total of 736. And remember, you can use your on-screen calculators. For the purpose of prepping or following me today, you can use your calculators on the phone because that's going to be the most similar to the calculator that's on screen. The on-screen calculator is not a scientific calculator and therefore doesn't have as many functions, right? And then gym is going to be 0.04, so 4% times by 3,200, which gives you a score of 100, or it's 128. And then you find the difference between the two and you get 608. And therefore B is the correct answer. So well done to those of you who got that correct. Let me go back there. Right, so well done to those of you who got that correct. Now the problem is that this is 3 different steps. We've got step number 1, we worked out what food is. Step number 2, we worked out what gym was. And then finally, we worked out what the final answer is. So 3 different steps, which means 3 different times you're going to be going to that calculator and a possibility to make mistakes. Now, instead of finding the difference right at the end, why not find the difference at the beginning? And I'm sure that, again, when I teach this in a lecture theatre, like I did last month, about 90% of the people did it this way. And that's great. You got the answer. But the UCAT doesn't care about your working out. It cares about just the correct answer in the quickest amount of time. And the remainder 10% of you who must have done it a different way, a faster way, and well done if that is one of you already, is find the difference at the beginning. So 19% is the difference of 23 and 4. So you do 0.19 times by 3,200, and that gives you the answer 608 all in one go. Right, so instead of doing 3 separate calculations into your calculator, you just do 1. Now, on average, what that would do is save you 10 seconds. And that may not seem like a lot, but if you times that by 36 questions in quantitative reasoning, that's 360 seconds, which is 6 minutes. And if you're spending 30 seconds per question, 6 minutes will allow you to do 12 questions out of the 36 that are in this section. That's a third of the exam you could do just by saving time. And this is where all these time-saving techniques that we teach at the course are so important, because they allow you to get through the easier questions much quicker, and therefore come back for the harder questions, allowing you to get a really good score in the certain sections of the UCAT, especially quantitative reasoning. So here we are. Right, and then you have time to go back to the harder questions, and that's what we're going to do here. So I'll give you guys about 35 seconds for this one, and let's go through. Right, I'm going to stop you guys here and let's go through and have a quick look. So sometimes you'll be reading a question and it'll be way too complicated and you'll be like, what is going on? So sometimes it's just quicker to make your own data set. So we've got Rory's mortgage and therefore mortgages there is 25%. So let's just create our own little quarter of a pie chart mortgage. And it says the flat is 6% of his mortgage budget, right? So I'm going to pop in 6% in there. So that's 6 and that leaves 19 as my remainder. Okay, so it's 25 minus 6 would be 19. So I'm going to draw that a bit neater so you guys can see where I'm coming from. 6 and then 19. Okay, and the question says the mortgage for his house, so this is the flat and this is the house, is what percentage of his monthly mortgage budget, being 25%? And that is 19. So the simple equation you have to do is 19 over 25, and that would give you 0.76, i.e. C, 76%. Nice and simple. So this question wasn't even that hard. It was just worded difficultly. And therefore, drawing your own data, another tip up your arsenal, will just help you get to the answer much quicker. So welcome to those of you guys who got C for that. But this is the kind of stuff that I would like you to be doing. And then you continue doing that, you'll score highly on the UCAT. Right. The fourth section is abstract reasoning. Okay, so this is a quicker section. It's only 12 minutes long, and you'll have 50 questions. They'll come in sets of 5, so you get 10 of those. Now, the 1 minute that you get per set, or is recommended, is 30 seconds of that I would like to spend trying to figure out what the pattern is. And then the other 30 seconds answering the 5 questions. Now, you don't need that much time to answer the questions once you know what the pattern is, but finding the pattern is the main challenge. So let's go ahead and see what an abstract reasoning question looks like. You have 30 seconds to find a pattern within these two sets. Right, so let's come back and have a think about what the pattern here could potentially be. So we've got set A and you've got set B. Now, when it comes to abstract reasoning, each set has 6 boxes, as you can see, the top left and right, middle left and right, and the bottom left and right. And same for set B as well. So your pattern has to be the same pattern for each one of those 6 boxes in that particular set. And the best thing to do is start with the simplest box. I'm going to start here, and we're going to go with something called SCANS. It's an acronym which stands for shape, color, arrangement, number, size. So it's SCANS. Okay, and we're going to look at the simplest box, which is this one, top left in set A, and we're going to think about what different patterns could be there. So first of all, the shape that we see is we see squares. Now, for the purpose of the UCAT, squares and rectangles are the same thing. Square is just a regular rectangle, right? 4 regular sides as opposed to 2 and 2. So in this case, we've got rectangles. Does every box have rectangles? Yes, it does. Yep, and yep. Okay, so rectangles is definitely part of the pattern. Are the rectangles always black? Nope. Here they're both white. Here there's a white and black one. So therefore color is not part of it. Are the rectangles always diagonally across from each other? Nope, they're horizontal next to each other here and up there as well. So arrangement is most likely not a part of it. How many rectangles are there in each box? We've got 2, 2, 2, 2, and so on. Therefore, 2 is a good number, therefore part of the pattern. And then finally, size. Are the rectangles always the same size, or does the size vary? And it does vary, therefore that is not part of the pattern. So we can conclude that our pattern for set A is that there's 2 rectangles. In set B, if we stick to the same thing, rectangles, all the boxes have it. Let's count the number of rectangles in each box. We've got 3, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4. So we could say here there's more than 2 rectangles. So that's our pattern for set A and B, and we can find that very quickly by using our acronyms. And there's lots of other techniques that you'll learn, but you'll get to the pattern much quicker that way. So 30 seconds, and the remainder of the 30 seconds, you go ahead and answer your questions. So we know now that set A is 2 rectangles, set B is more than 2 rectangles, and therefore the first one is 2 there, so therefore this is A. Next one, there's 3, so this is B. And then this one, you've got more than 2, again, this is B. And then this one is just 1, so that's going to be neither. And then the final one, there's 2, so A. All right, so that's how quickly we'll go through the questions once you figure out what the pattern is. And that's exactly what I'd like you guys to do on test day. Now, there are 4 types of questions when it comes to abstract reasoning. This is a type 1 question. We're going to look at what a type 2 question looks like. So a type 2 question gives you a series. I'll show you that again in a second. So what you do, so think of it as a series like 2, 4, 6, 8. What comes next? 10. You do the same thing, okay? So you got to work out, you get a series, you have a pattern, and you need to work out what the final version would be, and you have a few options. The problem with type 2 questions is they don't come as a set of 5, they come as standalone in terms of the pattern of all 5 of those would be different each time. So whereas with type 1 questions, where if you figure out what the pattern is over 30 seconds, you get 5 marks, with type 2 questions, that's not the case. So if we were to divide the number of marks, so 50, by 12 minutes, roughly you have about 15 seconds per question, or even under that, okay? 12 times 60 seconds if you did that. So what I would like you guys to do is, I'm only going to give you 15 seconds for the next question. Let's see if you can get an answer or even figure out what the pattern is. Right, that's the end of time. Okay, so if you haven't got an answer straight away, or you weren't ready to move on to the next question, you've already spent too long. And this is how the UCAT's going to try and catch you out by putting these questions in randomly here and there, and they'll come up and they'll slow you down significantly. And some of the easiest questions might be towards the end, which you will never see if you spend time doing these. So my advice to you on test day, and also when you're prepping, always triage type 2 questions. So questions like these, always triage them and come back to them later when you have time, if you have time. Right? Because you'll only be getting a few marks here and there, whereas you could easily lose up to 10 or 15 marks if you get bogged down by these. And the way you do them is really simple. Just pick one thing at a time. So for example, where is the arrow pointing? It points to the right, points up, points left, points down. So in our answer, it's going to point to the right because the arrow is rotating by 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So we can eliminate C, all right? Next up, how's the heart rotated? It's pointing down, pointing to the left, pointing up, pointing right. So it's rotating by 90 degrees. So it's going to point down in our answer. So we can eliminate B. All right. What color is the heart? It goes black, white, gray, black, white. Oh, look, both these are white. So we can't eliminate anything. And then what color is the arrow? It goes gray, white, black, gray, white. So we can eliminate A, and therefore D is the correct answer. So that's how you go about doing that. But they will take you more than 15 seconds, could even take you up to 45 seconds. And that time you could spend to get over 5 marks, not just 1. So remember, on test day, always triage these. And of course, for more tips about abstract reasoning, have a look at the UCAT course down below. Right, final section, situational judgment. Remember, this is banded from 1 to 4, and you guys want to aim for 1 or 2. Okay, so those are the upper 2 bands. And you'll get 22 scenarios, 69 questions in total, and you'll have 26 minutes to do those in. My advice to you is spend no more than 30 seconds reading the scenario, and then the questions only need about 10 seconds per question because your judgment should be pretty quick once you know the different ethics principles, again, which I'll take you through, that you need to be aware of. So let's have a read of the scenario. I'll give you about 30 seconds, and then we'll go through the questions together. Right, so when it comes to situation judgment, you will have 3 main types of questions. You'll have the questions that are appropriate questions. You have importance questions. And then you have the drag and drop questions. Okay, so appropriate questions, the answer choices will always be like this. Important questions, again, A, B, and C, D will usually mean similar things, right? So the question itself isn't the thing that takes time. The scenario is the thing that reading it makes you spend a little bit of time and also thinking about what the main issue is. Here, the main issue is that Neil is most likely, unintentionally perhaps, breaching confidentiality. So you're thinking how to best approach this and the situation. Okay, so number 1 says make a complaint to the consultant about Neil's social media post. So have a think about what you would do in this instance if you were in the position of Neil's colleague, right? And Neil was doing this and you were going to go and kind of respond to that. So if you were to make a complaint to the consultant, okay, think about confidentiality being breached by this post. By the time the consultant reads the email, has a meeting with Neil, gets Neil to take down the post, a lot of time would have gone past and patient confidentiality would have been breached for longer. So your best intent would be to not only help the patient's confidentiality not to be breached, but also kind of help Neil along as well, not waste anyone else's time. So in this case, this would be a very inappropriate thing to do, okay, because it would just end up costing you too much time and therefore leaving the post up for longer, and it would be hazardous to the doctor-patient relationship between Neil and his patient. Could also affect Neil's career, consultant's time, and also your relationship with Neil. A better thing to do would be to contact Neil, advising him to remove the social media post. That would get the post down much quicker, and it would help all these situations without creating too many other problems. Let's have a look at another scenario. You guys have 30 seconds for this one as well. Right, so the main issue here is that your colleague Declan says it shouldn't be my job to label blood bottles anyway, so I don't pay attention, and therefore he's making mistakes, and this could be affecting patient safety. So what about tell Declan to ask the phlebotomist to do the bloods for his patients? Have a think about that option. And I always split A, B, C, and D into two kind of bits. One, good things, and then C and D into negative things, bad things. Okay, so initially make a snap judgment. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? So telling him that get the phlebotomist to do it. I would say it's a bad idea. So we're below the line C or D. And then have a think about, is this going to create any, is this going to still solve the problem or not? In this case, if the phlebs did do the bloods, at least there wouldn't be any mistakes, right? So the correct answer here is C. So well done to those of you who selected that. And then finally, remind Declan of the importance of labeling blood bottles correctly. And of course, nice and simple, this one is a very appropriate thing to do. Right, guys, so that brings us very nicely to the end of the introduction to the sample questions of the UCAT, right? And what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about is UCAT preparation, okay? And I always draw this graph to help people understand how much time is needed for prepping for the UCAT, essentially. So on the x-axis, we'll put time, and on the y-axis, we'll go ahead and put score. Now, the UCAT is not really a knowledge-based exam. It's more of a skill assessment, because, you know, universities will already have your A-level and GCSE grades, or the mock A-level grades, essentially. So why do we need an extra 25 minutes worth of maths section to assess your maths knowledge? That's not the point. The point is we want to test your skills, such as organization, working under pressure, whether you can prioritize different tasks, different questions, and stay calm under pressure, right? So these are the skills that the UCAT assesses, and this is what it's all about. And to learn those skills, essentially, this is usually how it looks over time. You start at not an amazing score, essentially, but as time goes on, you will get better and better and go up this curve. And you want to sit your exam ideally when you're at the top of that bell curve, and that is usually for most people somewhere along the 4 to 6 weeks mark. Okay, so that's where you want to sit your exam. Obviously, if you did something like the UCAT course, you would start at a higher point and learn the techniques a lot quicker, and then you can practice with those techniques to get better and better and better, essentially. Right, so we've split this 4 to 6 week into 3 different sections, and the first one is accuracy. So come along, do the Medical Life UCAT course, and essentially what we've covered over in the last 45 minutes to an hour, we'll do 2 days worth of that. So lots more tips, lots more questions, and just getting you guys to learn different ways of solving questions much quicker, saving time, and learning lots of different techniques per different question types that will come up in the UCAT. Then you're going to do some short quizzes to kind of keep improving your accuracy. You can do timed or untimed practice, and then a mock as well. And then weeks 3 and 4, you want to start working a bit more on your speed and your accuracy. So start practicing triaging. So obviously at the course, I'll teach you exactly which questions to triage. I've given you one example today, but there's loads more different examples of questions that you should, as soon as you see them, within 5 seconds, you'll know what it is, and therefore triage it. Longer quizzes, so you can kind of practice triaging a bit more and do 1 or 2 full mocks and review those mocks and learn from your mistakes, and throw in a few official UCAT mocks as well. And then the final 5, the 2 weeks of your prep, you're going to be doing the official UCAT mocks. There's 4 of them in total, and then obviously we'll give you up to 8 with our Q bank as well. So you'll have more than enough mocks and questions to get you through to the end of your prep and then onto the test itself. So yeah, so keep doing longer quizzes as well, and essentially prep for your test day. Make sure you've got all your documents and everything sorted, and then you are well on your way there. And the idea is you replicate everything you've been practicing at home at your test day. It's really important to make a timetable. So have a think about when you're going to sit your exam. Make sure you book that slot, and then prepare your organization accordingly. So let's say if you were going to do your exam in 5.5 weeks, you try and do a mock every one of those days, and then throw in a few other mocks on the weeks 3 and 4, 5, right? And then you're going to be reviewing that. Obviously, I'll help you make this timetable a bit more once you come along to the course. But the idea is you're going to be doing lots of prep throughout that time. Make sure you take some days off, okay, as well. And then don't do just one section every day, okay? Do not do that, because if you did that, you wouldn't come back to the same question for a whole week. Make sure you do a bit of everything every day, but you can focus a bit more on certain areas. After a mock, the day after the mock, it'd be very good to do a review, and then you can find what the problem was, and then you can do a bit of focus prep the day after that, right? So that's what it's all about. Right, so what resources are there available for you guys? Well, first of all, I've been going on and on about the 2-day live online UCAT course from the Medical Life. It is packed full of different, lots of different types of questions, so you'll understand all the different types of questions that are going to come up on test day. You'll become masters of triaging, so you know exactly which questions to do, which ones to kind of flag and come back to, because remember, UCAT, no one finishes it. The whole point is that you pick and choose the questions that going to get you the answers or the marks in the quickest time possible, and therefore score the highest that you can. And then we've got our question bank. So the question bank powered by past tests essentially is up to 8,000 questions. We're continuously adding more and more questions as well, up to 8 mocks, and you will have a season pass to that. So from June, so all the way until October. So depending on whenever you're doing your exam, you will have access to that. There's no weekly price that we charge for that. So you just get a one-off access and it will take you all the way till the end. And then a regular work experience program with regular work experience talks and a personal statement workshop for you guys. The idea of all of this resources, the reason we created that is because going into applying to medical dental school, it's a very daunting and scary process, and a lot of people don't feel very confident, right? So just have a look at this graph that is from one of the UCAT courses. People generally don't feel very confident before the course, and then as soon as you've done the course, straight away, boom, you feel much better about the exam, about all your prep. You feel more motivated. You know what to do. You know what kind of things to look at, how to organize your preparation, all of that, right? So here are our dates of the Medic Life UCAT courses. Okay, there's going to be 6 this year. One's already happened, and then this one's unavailable anymore because it's sold out. So essentially, you've got 4 potential ones now, and depending on when you're watching that videos, more of these may have been done. So the 2-day live online UCAT course by itself is £89. That's 2 days worth of tutoring. It's small groups, interactive. You'll get a chance to learn. It'll be active learning. It's not just like watching a video like here, but you'll be asked questions and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. And then you've got our question bank, okay, which is the Medic Life question bank powered by past tests. Now, over the years, we know that there's lots of other question banks out there. And the main complaint I heard from students all the time was, well, they'll be doing all the practice on the question banks. They will all be going very well, but then they go to test day and the test exam is not very similar to the practice they've been doing. And then they panic and they don't do as well. So one thing we wanted to do was completely transform question banks out there. And the way we've done it is we've got people who've scored in the highest deciles in the UCAT, my previous students over the last few years, to write every single question. So all the questions with the Medic Life question bank, which is powered by past tests, have been written by med students. They've been reviewed, checked by med students to make sure that the similarity is as accurate as possible. So although we may not have the highest number of questions, we've focused more on the quality rather than just the quantity. So that's why I genuinely believe that our question bank will give you the closest experience to the real thing that you can experience on test day. So that is £49, but the sweet spot is the bundle together. So the course and the Q bank together is £99, giving you massive savings and therefore ability to go and essentially smash your UCAT for less than £100. And of course, there's the Medic Life bursary too. So if you have a household income of below 20,000, you are eligible to get 50% off. So have a look at the Medic Life bursary page on the website, and then you can apply, and then that will get looked at, and then you can get a 50% off allowance for the courses. And then finally, there's the UCAT broadcast channel or applications broadcast channel for this year. So what we're doing, essentially, I'm going through a lot of data related to a lot of the universities. So once you've done your UCAT, you will have a better understanding and apply strategically so you don't end up wasting a choice, because some universities have cutoffs. Now, this data is not 100% accurate because it's based on previous historical data, so last year and the year before that, but it gives a good guide. Okay, so it's just my opinion, and here's an example of a video.
Applying to Queen Mary Medical School Part 2. So let's look deeper at the entry requirements. Queen Mary states that if you score below the 4th decile on the UCAT, they will outright reject you. Also, if you get a band 4 on the SJT, again, you'll get rejected. Having said that, last year's cutoff was 2,720, which would have been the top 2.5 deciles. Now, we know the stats change slightly every year, but here's what I would do. Apply to Queen Mary if you're in the top 2 deciles of the UCAT and you've got a band 1 or 2 in situation judgment. Don't forget to share this with your friends to help them out, to follow the Medic Life for more, and I'll see you guys soon.
Right, so of course I've got an affiliation with any universities, but there's lots of data out there. So instead of you guys going through it, I'll be going through all of that. And if you follow the broadcast channel, it will automatically join you to the Medic Life's Instagram broadcast channel, where these videos will be popping up for you guys to keep an eye out for. All right, and then finally, don't forget our Medic Life Instagram and TikTok pages. There's going to be lots more information, triaging techniques and so on. And then hopefully I'll get to see you guys at the course. And here's a final reminder of the 2 codes that you can scan, or if you're watching this on the Medic Life website, you're already on the UCAT page. So go down below, have a look at the dates, book onto a course ASAP. You'll get your question bank access pretty much straight away. So you can start your prepping. And then depending on which course you choose to come onto, you will learn all the techniques that you can then build up with more questions. And the broadcast channel QR code is there. You can pause this video to kind of take a picture of those. Otherwise, I will see you at the course. It's been a pleasure teaching you guys and giving you a taste of what the UCAT course is going to be like, and I hope to see you at the UCAT course. Take care. Bye-bye.